For over 15 years, Zak Bagans has presented Ghost Adventures as raw, unfiltered paranormal investigation, showing viewers everything captured during investigations. Subscribe now because former crew members, paranormal researchers, and leaked production documents reveal Zack has been systematically hiding evidence that contradicts the show's narrative. Footage showing activity was faked gets buried. Scientific analysis disproving hauntings never airs. Witness recantations are edited out. His museum displays artifacts with fabricated histories. Most disturbing, evidence suggesting Zack himself has been caught staging phenomena is locked away under legal threats. This is the evidence Zak Bagans doesn't want Ghost Adventures viewers to see. In 2021, a former Ghost Adventures camera operator who worked on the show from 2015 through 2019 came forward under condition of anonymity with allegations that multiple investigations featured staged phenomena that viewers were led to believe was genuine paranormal activity, backed by raw footage files he had retained that show the setup and execution of effects that were edited to appear spontaneous on broadcast episodes. According to this source, whose identity was verified by paranormal investigation journalists, though he requested anonymity due to non-disclosure agreement concerns, at least a dozen investigations across seasons 10 through 15 included some degree of staged activity ranging from minor enhancements of ambiguous evidence to completely fabricated incidents presented as genuine supernatural phenomena. The most damning evidence involves footage from a 2017 investigation at a private residence in Nevada, where the homeowners reported shadow figures and objects moving on their own. The broadcast episode showed dramatic footage of a chair sliding across the floor while Zack and Aaron were in an adjacent room, presented as genuine poltergeist activity captured by a static camera. However, the raw footage files allegedly show a wider angle revealing a crew member using a thin wire or fishing line to pull the chair, with the shot then being cropped and edited to remove the crew member from frame before broadcast. The former operator claims he raised concerns about this editing to producers and was told it was enhancing evidence that was already there and that viewers expected dramatic footage. Even more problematic, the source provided metadata from multiple investigation files showing timestamps were altered in editing to make it appear events happened simultaneously when they actually occurred hours apart, creating false narratives about escalating paranormal activity. For example, at a 2016 museum investigation, EVP audio captured at 2 in the morning was edited to appear as immediate response to questions Zack asked at 11 p.m., making it seem like intelligent spirits were communicating when the actual timeline showed no such correlation. The source also described common techniques used to create ambiguous evidence that could be presented as paranormal without being outright fabrication. These included crew members making noise off camera that would be attributed to spirits, deliberately leaving doors and windows slightly ajar so they would move from air pressure changes that could be called paranormal, and positioning equipment in ways that would create false electromagnetic field readings or temperature fluctuations that could be presented as supernatural. Perhaps most significantly, the source claims Zack is fully aware of these practices and actively participates in determining what evidence gets enhanced for broadcast and what genuine, ambiguous, or negative results get buried to maintain the show's dramatic narrative. Over the years, Ghost Adventures has submitted various pieces of alleged evidence to scientific experts, laboratories, and academic institutions for analysis. But according to researchers who have conducted these analyses, the show has a pattern of only airing results that support paranormal conclusions while suppressing scientific findings that provide mundane explanations or debunk supposed phenomena. Dr. Robert Bartholomew, a medical sociologist who has studied paranormal claims and mass hysteria, was contacted by Ghost Adventures producers in 2013 to analyze audio recordings from multiple investigations to determine if voices captured on digital recorders represented genuine anomalous phenomena or could be explained through conventional means. Dr. Bartholomew conducted extensive analysis and concluded that the vast majority of the EVP recordings could be explained as pareidolia, the human tendency to perceive meaningful patterns in random stimuli, combined with audio artifacts from digital compression, environmental sounds misinterpreted as voices, and in some cases, actual human voices from crew members or people in adjacent areas that were mistakenly attributed to spirits. His detailed report provided technical explanations for each piece of audio submitted, demonstrating how the supposed spirit voices were actually mundane sounds being interpreted through bias and expectation. According to Dr. Bartholomew, producers thanked him for his analysis, but the episode never aired and his findings were never mentioned on the show despite producers initially indicating his expert analysis would be featured. When Dr. Bartholomew inquired about why his conclusions weren't included, he was told the episode went in a different direction, and his services were no longer needed. Similarly, a materials science laboratory that analyzed dust and residue samples collected from allegedly haunted locations during a 2015 investigation found that unusual substances Zack claimed might be ectoplasm or paranormal residue were actually common household dust, insect debris, and in one case petroleum-based theatrical fog machine residue, suggesting someone had been using a fog machine in the location before filming. This analysis was conducted at the show's request and expense, but when results came back showing mundane explanations, the findings were never mentioned in the broadcast episode. The laboratory director attempted to discuss the results publicly but received a cease and desist letter from the production company's legal team claiming the analysis was conducted under confidentiality agreement and could not be disclosed without permission. Multiple audio forensics experts who have analyzed Ghost Adventures EVP recordings independently have noted that the show selectively presents recordings and interpretations that support paranormal conclusions, while ignoring the much larger volume of recordings, where nothing anomalous appears or where sounds have obvious conventional explanations. One of the most disturbing patterns in evidence suppression involves witnesses who appear in Ghost Adventures episodes describing dramatic paranormal experiences, but who later recant or significantly modify their stories, with these recantations being actively suppressed by production through editing, legal agreements, and in some cases financial settlements to prevent witnesses from speaking publicly about their changed testimonies. In 2014, a family appeared on Ghost Adventures describing terrifying paranormal activity in their California home, including physical attacks, possessions, and demonic activity that allegedly escalated after they purchased antique furniture from an estate sale. The episode portrayed their experiences as genuine supernatural phenomena and featured dramatic recreations of the alleged incidents. However, according to interviews the family gave to local media approximately 6 months after the episode aired, they acknowledged that production had heavily coached them on what to say, encouraged exaggeration of relatively minor odd experiences into dramatic supernatural encounters, and created pressure to provide increasingly frightening accounts because producers felt the initial interviews were not compelling enough for television. The family stated they did experience some unexplained phenomena that concerned them, which is why they contacted the show, but the actual experiences were far less dramatic than what was portrayed, and they now believed most of what they experienced had conventional explanations, including old house settling, animals in the walls, and their own heightened anxiety creating false perceptions. When the family attempted to speak publicly about their concerns that the episode misrepresented their experiences, they received legal correspondence from the production company reminding them of agreements they signed that included non-disparagement clauses and threatening legal action if they continued making public statements that contradicted the broadcast episode. The family ultimately stopped discussing the case publicly, though their local interviews remain available, showing them walking back the dramatic claims featured on the show. Similarly, a location owner who allowed Ghost Adventures to film at his historical building in 2016 later stated in interviews with paranormal investigation blogs that he had serious concerns about how the investigation was conducted and edited. He claimed that when he pointed out during filming that certain supposed paranormal activity had mundane explanations, such as doors that appeared to close on their own actually being affected by HVAC air pressure changes he could demonstrate on command, these explanations were edited out of the broadcast episode, and only the footage showing doors closing was aired with paranormal attribution. When he tried to contact production to request corrections or clarifications be added to the episode, his communications were ignored, and he received legal notification that he had granted the show rights to edit and present the material as they saw fit per the location release agreement he signed. Zak Bagans' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas contains hundreds of allegedly cursed, haunted, or historically significant objects that Zack claims have documented paranormal properties or dark histories. But investigation by journalists, historians, and skeptical researchers has revealed that many high-profile museum pieces have fabricated or greatly exaggerated backstories that Zack continues to present as factual, despite evidence contradicting the official narratives. One of the museum's most promoted items is the allegedly haunted Dybbuk box, a wine cabinet that Zack purchased and claims is inhabited by a malicious spirit that causes illness, nightmares, and misfortune to anyone who comes in contact with it. The object gained fame through eBay sales and was featured in horror films. However, the Dybbuk box's original seller, Kevin Mannis, admitted in a 2019 interview that he fabricated the entire haunted backstory as a creative writing exercise and artistic project, and that he was shocked when people began taking the story literally and attributing real phenomena to the box. Manis stated explicitly that nothing supernatural has ever been associated with the box, and the entire narrative was fictional from the beginning. Despite this public admission from the box's creator that the haunting story is fabricated, Zack continues displaying the Dybbuk box as a genuinely cursed object and has never acknowledged Manis's recantation or updated the museum's presentation to reflect that the box's history is fictional. Similarly, the museum displays what Zack calls Dr. Kevorkian's death van, claiming it is the actual vehicle where the controversial physician assisted terminally ill patients in ending their lives, and that the van is haunted by spirits of the deceased. However, research by journalists found that the van Zack purchased has questionable provenance and likely is not the actual vehicle used by Kevorkian, with transportation and ownership records not matching Zack's claims about the van's history. Multiple other museum pieces claiming association with famous murders, executions, or tragedies have been investigated by historians who found the provenance documentation is weak or contradicted by historical records. A haunted mirror claimed to have belonged to a serial killer was traced to an antique shop that had no documentation connecting the mirror to any crime or killer. Furniture supposedly from the home where a famous murder occurred was shown to post-date the actual crime by several decades based on manufacturing techniques and materials. When these discrepancies are brought to the museum's attention, responses have ranged from refusing comment to doubling down on the original claims without providing supporting evidence. The museum's business model appears to rely on presenting objects with dramatic backstories, whether or not those backstories are historically accurate, and correcting false narratives would undermine the attraction's appeal. Critics note that presenting fabricated histories as fact when charging admission fees could constitute consumer fraud, but Zack has never faced legal consequences for the documented inaccuracies in museum displays. Former Ghost Adventures crew members who have left the show or been fired have provided accounts that directly contradict the official narrative about how investigations are conducted and how genuine the evidence presented to viewers actually is, but these testimonies are suppressed through non-disclosure agreements, legal threats, and industry pressure that prevents most former employees from speaking openly about what they witnessed behind the scenes. Nick Groff, who was an original Ghost Adventures investigator and executive producer from the show's inception through 2014, left under circumstances that were never fully explained publicly, with both Nick and Zack declining to provide detailed reasons for the departure beyond vague statements about creative differences and wanting to pursue different directions. However, in interviews Nick has given since leaving, he has made carefully worded statements suggesting he became uncomfortable with aspects of how Ghost Adventures operated. In a 2018 podcast interview, Nick stated that he felt paranormal investigation should maintain certain ethical standards and authenticity, and that he reached a point where he couldn't continue with a project unless he felt it was being conducted with integrity that he could stand behind. While Nick has never explicitly accused Ghost Adventures of fabrication, his carefully chosen words and refusal to return to the show despite apparent opportunities have been interpreted by many observers as implicit criticism of practices he witnessed. Aaron Goodwin, who has remained with Ghost Adventures throughout its run, has made occasional comments that suggest tension between maintaining authenticity and creating compelling television. In social media responses to fans questioning whether the show is real, Aaron has sometimes responded with statements like, "You decide," or "Make up your own mind," non-answers that don't confirm or deny authenticity and suggest he may be uncomfortable making definitive claims about evidence. When pressed by fans about specific investigations or evidence, Aaron often deflects or goes silent, behavior that some interpret as someone bound by NDAs who can't speak freely about what he knows. Multiple former production crew members, camera operators, and audio technicians have attempted to speak publicly about their experiences working on Ghost Adventures, but have been stopped by legal threats before they could provide detailed information. Several former crew members started blogs or YouTube channels discussing their paranormal investigation experiences generally, but received cease and desist letters when they began discussing Ghost Adventures specifically, forcing them to delete content and stop posting about their time on the show. This pattern of legal suppression prevents the public from hearing first-hand accounts from people who were present during investigations and saw how footage was captured, edited, and presented. Independent paranormal investigators and skeptical researchers who have visited locations after Ghost Adventures filmed there have documented evidence that directly contradicts claims made in broadcast episodes, finding conventional explanations for supposed paranormal phenomena, and in some cases discovering that locations weren't as haunted as portrayed, or that activity was enhanced through technical manipulation. The Washoe Club in Virginia City, Nevada, has been featured in multiple Ghost Adventures episodes and investigations, with Zack claiming it is one of the most actively haunted locations he has ever investigated, showing dramatic evidence including full-body apparitions, violent poltergeist activity, and alleged possessions. However, independent investigation teams who have visited the Washoe Club with permission from the property owners have consistently failed to replicate the dramatic evidence Ghost Adventures captured, instead finding that the building has normal, old structure characteristics, including settling sounds, air pressure changes from temperature variations, and electromagnetic field readings consistent with old wiring rather than paranormal activity. One team of investigators with backgrounds in audio engineering analyzed the acoustic properties of rooms where Ghost Adventures captured EVP evidence and determined that the spaces have characteristics that create unusual echoes and sound distortions from normal environmental noise, potentially explaining how ambient sounds could be misinterpreted as spirit voices. When these investigators attempted to contact Ghost Adventures production to share their findings and suggest the location's phenomena might have conventional explanations, their communications went unanswered. Similarly, independent teams investigating the Goldfield Hotel, another Nevada location featured in multiple Ghost Adventures episodes and investigations, have noted significant discrepancies between what the show portrayed and what they found on site. Ghost Adventures episodes showed the hotel as largely abandoned and untouched since closure, suggesting paranormal activity occurs in an undisturbed location. However, investigators found evidence that the building is regularly accessed by various groups, that urban explorers frequently break in, and that some areas have been modified or staged to appear more deteriorated or spooky than they actually are, raising questions about whether some evidence Ghost Adventures captured might have been influenced by people who accessed the location before filming. Multiple episodes filmed at private residences have been followed by subsequent occupants or property owners, revealing that hauntings were exaggerated or non-existent, suggesting either the original witnesses misrepresented their experiences to get on television, or that production encouraged exaggeration. A house featured in a 2013 episode was later purchased by new owners who investigated the property's history and found no documentation of the tragic deaths and suffering that Ghost Adventures claimed created the haunting, and no subsequent paranormal activity despite living in the house for years. Beyond evidence from investigations that get suppressed, Zak Bagans himself has had documented personal experiences and incidents related to paranormal investigation that he refuses to discuss in detail publicly, maintaining unusual secrecy about events that would seem to be compelling content for someone who built a career on sharing paranormal experiences with audiences. The most significant involves what happened after the Cecil Hotel investigation in Los Angeles in 2013. Zack has briefly mentioned that he experienced severe negative effects following that investigation, including health problems, nightmares, and psychological distress, but he has never provided detailed information about what specifically occurred, despite the Cecil Hotel episode being one of the show's most watched investigations. According to people close to Zack who have spoken to paranormal investigation journalists, Zack experienced what he believed was a legitimate demonic attachment following the Cecil Hotel that required him to undergo multiple exorcisms and spiritual cleansing rituals by various religious practitioners, including a Catholic priest, practitioners of Santeria, and Native American spiritual healers. He allegedly experienced phenomena in his personal residence, including objects moving, unexplained sounds, electronic disturbances, and most disturbing, episodes where he felt he was not in control of his own thoughts and actions, suggesting potential possession. However, when asked about this period in interviews, Zack deflects and changes the subject, refusing to provide details despite his usual willingness to discuss paranormal experiences openly. This suggests either the experiences were so traumatic he can't discuss them publicly, or that discussing them in detail would reveal information he doesn't want public for personal or legal reasons. Similarly, Zack has been notably silent about specific incidents during the Poveglia Island investigation, despite that episode being highly promoted and watched. While the episode showed Zack experiencing health problems and psychological distress, crew members who were present have suggested in private conversations that what actually occurred was far more severe than what aired, including Zack experiencing complete personality changes, making threats toward crew members while not appearing to be himself, and having no memory of extended periods of time. If these reports are accurate, they would represent some of the most compelling evidence of genuine paranormal phenomena affecting an investigator, Yet Zack refuses to discuss the full extent of what happened, again suggesting he's deliberately withholding information from viewers. Multiple former colleagues have noted that Zack has a pattern of experiencing dramatic phenomena during investigations that gets captured on camera for broadcast, but then refusing to discuss those experiences in depth afterward when not being filmed, creating suspicion that the on-camera incidents might be performed or exaggerated while his genuine private experiences, if any, remain hidden. One of the most effective methods Zak Bagans and Ghost Adventures production use to suppress evidence is aggressive deployment of legal threats, cease and desist letters, and non-disclosure agreements preventing witnesses, former crew members, location owners, and critics from speaking publicly about anything contradicting the show's official narratives. Multiple paranormal investigation websites and YouTube channels attempting to critically analyze Ghost Adventures evidence have received cease and desist letters from attorneys representing Zack or the production company, claiming defamation, copyright infringement, or breach of confidentiality. These legal threats silence critics because fighting them requires expensive legal representation most individuals cannot afford, even when criticism is protected speech or fair use. One blogger who compiled evidence suggesting staged activity received legal correspondence demanding all material be removed and threatening lawsuit for damages, ultimately forcing the entire blog shut down. Location owners who allow filming must sign extensive agreements preventing them from publicly contradicting broadcast episodes or discussing behind-the-scenes production practices. Several owners witnessed concerning practices, including producers asking them to exaggerate haunting claims and activity being staged, but legal threats stopped them from speaking publicly. Former crew members are bound by comprehensive non-disclosure agreements restricting discussion of virtually any production aspect, including how evidence is captured, editing decisions, off-camera events, or Zack's behavior. These NDAs remain effective indefinitely with liquidated damages clauses that could financially ruin individuals who speak out. This creates situations where people with most direct knowledge about how Ghost Adventures operates are legally prevented from sharing information with the public, effectively silencing anyone who could contradict official narratives or reveal evidence being hidden from viewers.